country's premier river trips. The Middle Fork begins in the thick fir and spruce forests northwest of Stanley, with the merging of Bear Valley and Marsh Creeks. From 6,000 feet, it descends through portions of 3 national forests and a constantly changing landscape.
I really like the way it changes from top to bottom. The scenery changes dramatically from Boundary Creek down to Cache Bar. I mean, you start out the pine forest, real dense, thick forest and trees, and you move into kind of a wide open, almost deserty looking space in the middle, and then by the time you're at the bottom, it's a full cliff walls and real narrow, steep canyon. It's not the same the whole 100 miles. It changes a lot.
For some of the guides, rowing this river is the ultimate experience.
Oh, it's very euphoric. Yeah, it almost makes you feel like you're the first one navigating through there. Not much else parallels those experiences, you know? And every run and every time you go through, it's a different experience.
Along the river's lengthy course, rafters encounter dozens of rapids, including famous torrents like Pistol Creek, Tappan Falls, Haystack, and Rubber.
It was awesome. Everybody says the same thing. It's the best river in the country. And I have to agree, it's rapid, 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 rapid. It's like taking a chance, scary. I always say do something that scares you every day, and then you'll be living a full life.
It's hard to say how many rapids there are because it changes with each water stage, but there must be 100 rapids in 100 miles. I mean, there's just a rapid around every corner. There are some sections that are easy going and cruising, but there are also sections where you run a big rapid every 300 or 400 yards. The Middle Fork is one of the steepest rivers that we boat in this northwest region. It averages 28 feet per mile of drop and an incredible almost 3,000 feet over the 100-mile route. So you go through terrific climatic changes on the vegetation and just the country.
The scenery changes, the rapids change, and for many people who experience this river, their perspective changes. Things that seemed important to them in their busy urban lives have less importance when they're surrounded by the majesty of the Middle Fork.
I think it's a chance to get to slow down. There's a real presence to the land, and you don't realize at the time how much you're taking in image-wise. If you're here for 4 or 5 or 6 days, you have a chance to experience nature without a lot of interference and have a stretch of time to do it.
Of the 10,000 folks who float the Middle Fork each year, more than 60% travel with an outfitter. That means there's room on the river for the do-it-yourselfers, the private boaters. The Forest Service operates a lottery system for people interested in floating the river. The odds are about 30 to 1 that you'll draw one of the daily launches during the busy months of June, July, and August. Boaters typically start their journey at Boundary Creek. This is where campsites are assigned and final preparations made. Once you push off, you're in wilderness and you're on your own. Don't expect the river to show you any mercy. In the fall, when the water is low, securing a permit is much easier. So a group of us flew into Indian Creek Airstrip, about 25 miles below the usual put-in, hoping to avoid the rocks and to experience the Middle Fork in the quiet season. We still managed to find more than our share of obstructions, but we did experience the quiet of a September week on the river.
It's interesting to see how it always comes together, and I think every one of us at some point in the week leading up to the actual departure date are questioning whether they want to do this because it's so much work, but in the end it's always worth it.
One of the lovely things about a river trip is just how the rhythm of the day is driven by, first and foremost, the river and what it has to share with you and what we're trying to do, and then just all the logistics about loading and unloading and cooking, and that all just makes for a wonderful rhythm of the day. The canyons, most of them are granite, a lot of them are this lovely pink granite, and just how absolutely gorgeous that was as a place to flow through.
Occasionally, however, that rock winds up in the river, creating many of the Class 4 rapids that keep rafters on their toes. Just about everybody had trouble in Haystack Rapid, a long boulder field that seems to change whenever there's a blowout of the nearby creek. And since the devastating forest fires of 2000, those blowouts have become more frequent throughout the entire drainage. Tappan Falls is another rapid that can be a real challenge at low water.
I was outsmarted by the rapid. I was paying attention more to the setup that we were doing for filming, and I didn't set my correct line. Normally that rapid has a little bit of a left to right push if you run it on the left-hand side of that run. But as I came into the rapid, I was really surprised how much to the right push it pushed, and it pushed me more than I could push back, and it pushed me into the rocks over there. So I am a pretty good technical water rafter, and it's nice to be kept honest every once in a while and screw up. Of course, it lets everyone else cheer because they like when you screw up.
Two of our crew decided to give up some of the whitewater for a chance to backpack down one of the major tributaries of the Middle Fork.
This trip was truly different in that we hiked in to the Middle Fork. We got a shuttle out to Camas Creek and then hiked down the Camas Creek Trail some 14 miles through some beautiful country that most people will never see. The Middle Fork is one of these streams where thousands of people go down it every year, but few make it more than a few hundred yards away from the stream. We got into some really good fishing, and we'd intended to get down there a lot earlier, and so we just really worked hard to get down there. And just as we get to the Middle Fork, here come two kayakers, and it turned out it was our crew. We'd arrived at the same time. It's exciting.
I always have a great time with the people I'm with, and that makes being out here really exciting. But for me, I can get an intimate relationship with nature through my art and through observing wildlife. This has been amazing from a wildlife standpoint. It's something I study and look for. The idea that the wilderness is locked up or is locking up the land just doesn't seem to fit with me. I seem to be able to get out, get tired, and go back home. Idahoans are really lucky to have a wilderness area that is this pristine, has this much wildlife, and offers so many different experiences to different people.
The Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness Area is not a typical wilderness. When this primitive area officially became wilderness in 1980, several airstrips and some private ranches and cabins were grandfathered in. The airstrips make access to and from the Middle Fork River and the wilderness much easier. Every year, hundreds of rafters and their equipment are ferried to and from the river by small planes.
This wilderness is so big that if they didn't have those airstrips all over, there wouldn't be a lot of use in some of the areas, and so it helps put use in the area, and it's a challenge to pilots. I think backcountry flying is probably the most challenging of all flying there is, and it's fun, you know, working on these back strips. It's just a nice way to get around back here.
While there's a good airstrip at the Flying Bee Ranch, most rafters get to the ranch via its sandy beach along the Middle Fork. The Flying Bee store is a popular resupply stop for blocks of ice, water, liquid refreshments, and ice cream.
You know, we get 60 to 120 people a day in the store in the summertime. It's really nice, and you never know who's coming through the door, you know. You got a big group coming up, and everybody, it seems to be that they're more relaxed when they get back in the wilderness, and they're friendly and very talkative, just very nice people that you meet.
Rafters occasionally stay overnight or have a meal here, but the ranch is primarily a retreat for owners and their guests. And it has a long history on the Middle Fork. It was originally known as Brush Creek. George Crandall and his wife worked the land in the 1930s, often socializing with the early boatmen.
They raised a lot of fruit and vegetables and cattle. They sold most of it to the mines that was operating in this area. And then in the 50s, I guess it was, is when a guy by the name of Bennett bought it and turned it into the Flying Bee. And in 1960, the Flying Bee as it is started. They bought this place in the Root Ranch and started with the membership operation, and it's been very successful over the years that they've had it.
Keeping this ranch operation going in the wilderness is a big job for Cal and his crew. In addition to the store and the main lodge, there are a number of cabins, a barn, dozens of horses, hay fields, and even a hydro plant.
You have to do just a little bit of everything. You've got to do electrical work, you got to do water, or you got to do horses, you got to do maintenance, or just it's just like a little town all itself, and you got to just take care of everything on it. And it gets to be a challenge sometimes, but it just seems like I'm at home back here in the backcountry, and that's why I like it, I guess. We have a point here just above the ranch that a lot of people go up to. You can look up and down the river, you can see the whole ranch, and it's just a real quiet place to sit and watch things and just enjoy it a little bit. It's a nice view up there.
In 2000, the Flying Bee barely survived a raging firestorm that swept through the area. Hardly a year goes by without a fire somewhere along the Middle Fork. But by any measurement, the fires of 2000 were memorable. Hot weather, dry fuel, lightning strikes in August. In the Frank Church wilderness, more than 500,000 acres burned in that one summer alone. And eventually, those dead trees had to go somewhere. On July 24th of 2006, a powerful rainstorm blew out a tiny creek, dislodging debris and trees, hurtling them down the once crystal clear Middle Fork, where they completely bottled up popular Pistol Creek Rapid.
It's nature doing its thing. We had the fires of 2000 that caused some of the soils to be unstable, and we had a torrential rainpour. We got 6/10 of an inch of rain at our gauge on the river in about an hour's time. So that's a massive amount of water in a short period of time.
Montoya and his crew were presented with a classic river management dilemma. Do you do nothing and let nature take its course? After all, this is an official wilderness area. Or is your first concern the health and safety of the hundreds of people stranded behind the logjam?
We looked at the Wilderness Act and what it says for emergency situations. After I flew the river with the forest supervisor last night, we came to the conclusion that the only practical solution is to evaluate whether or not the blasters feel comfortable removing the blockage through blasting.
John Hawk, a certified blaster with the Forest Service, just happened to be on the river that day. He was one of the first Forest Service officials to reach the logjam. The Outdoor Idaho crew was not far behind.
At this time, we currently have approximately 400 people above this blockage. I don't want to use the word trapped, but they cannot come down. So their options are they have to backpack out, hire an outfitter, or wait for us to eliminate this blockage. We're going to use what we call minimum tools to do this job. If that doesn't work, then we request permission and ask to use more equipment.
We've seen a lot more logs coming down, a lot more washouts since the fire in 2000, but I've never seen something like this. We were even looking in that Middle Fork book. They have a log jam that happened in the 30s, and it's 5 logs. When I saw that there was a huge lake, I thought, this is going to be amazing. I got so excited for it, and then I had no idea it meant that I would be camping up there for 3 days.
To my knowledge and what I've been told, we've never had a blockage this severe. The key to explosives is the right amount at the right spot, just enough to nudge these logs to get them to move under the water pressure. It's going to be a learning experience for all of us. Our communications here is very challenging. We have two-way radios, we have satellite phones. Even with those, our communication right now, we're relaying through 2 different guard stations. Things get lost in the translation. We're going to look at this thing and evaluate it and figure out the best, safest way to do it. People are anxious to move on. They want to go down the river. They are very anxious and want to know why we can't move faster. And I think we are moving pretty fast on this.
The Pistol Creek Rapids blast was 95% successful. We're just waiting for the river to clear.
I'm amazed. I think they did a fabulous job. I'm really pleased with them. They've really gotten here quick and really did their work quick. We get to still have 2 days on the water. Honestly, the Middle Fork is my home. I mean, it's really what I come back to every year. Yeah, it's home to me.
I do think it's the best backcountry river trip in the continental United States. And for Idahoans, I think even though it may seem like a good idea to travel outside the state, I'd get up and make sure I ran the Middle Fork. It's an iconic Idaho resource that you should experience.
Thanks.
Yeah.